have Jason Fishman from DNA, otherwise known as the Digital Niche Agency, and they have a really, really unique service. You guys may be familiar with some of the things that they do, and I think primarily is the digital ads. So if anybody's ever noticed they've been looking for a car or maybe at a furniture website or something, and then you kind of notice you go to websites later on, and you'll see ads like you looked at a bed frame or you looked at a car or you looked at this, and it's kind of following you. So that is, one of the larger things that Jason does, and he'll be able to go into a lot more detail of other things that they provide, but primarily we're looking at those digital ads, and that's a great form of marketing for business owners. They basically capture that person's interest and then kind of follow them around for a little while and kind of keep putting that in their face to see if they can actually get them to buy it, and that's great. A lot of car dealerships, I know, Jason, I think you guys probably work with a lot of car dealerships, and I've even noticed that personally. A couple of years ago, I was looking for a Subaru, and every once in a while, it's been well over a year now since we've purchased our Subaru, and I still every once in a while get a little ad that pops up, hey, Subaru, there's a deal on a Subaru. I'm like, okay. So that's kind of what we're looking at here with Jason's company at DNA there. So, we've worked with Jason and DNA now, probably over a year now, Jason. We've had partnership with you guys in the marketplace, and they have a great team over there. Jason's great to work with. Him and I have spent multiple times on the phone and through email talking about clients. So I'm very happy to have Jason on with us. It's been quite some time since we've actually had Jason, so we figured it was a really good time to have Jason come back, because we've been talking to a lot of you guys in previous trainings and advanced trainings that we've put on about marketing, and how to help business owners market and become more relevant online. So what Jason does and his company does ties in very, very well to that. So, Jason, with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and hand the reins over to you. Maybe you can, if you want to give yourself another little introduction, maybe a little background and about the company, and we'll get the call going.
Absolutely. Thanks for the warm introduction there, Jeremy. And, pleasure to be on the line with the Agora team here today. I am a marketer. I've been doing this for about 10 years. I'll give you a little background on me before hopping into what we currently do. I started at a creative agency as an action sports consultant about 10 years ago, meaning I was working on the design elements of brands, of their online presence for companies in the snowboard, skateboard, surf industry. Grew up doing a lot of that. Some of the clients I was working with saw high levels of success, even were acquired, and I was moved on to other verticals within that industry, everything from telecom to entertainment to finance, e-commerce, fashion. Started getting a feel for what marketing campaigns, what marketing strategy, what marketing planning looked like across a full spectrum of different verticals, and moved on from there to hold positions at other agencies, including a traditional agency, learning about broadcast, radio, out-of-home marketing, events, more elements of how to engage a target audience. I've then led an in-house marketing team for a social gaming startup here out of Santa Monica. I was directly part of the development of that whole brand from the time it was an idea on a whiteboard to obtaining $3 million in seed capital, starting to acquire licenses for some of the social games. I was directly part of all of that. Unfortunately, they ran into some different obstacles scaling. I moved over to the sales side of things, working with an advertising network who represented over 1,500 print publishers and built their mobile and tablet apps, their mobile and tablet digital magazines, which gave me the opportunity to speak with many top 100 advertisers, work with many of them directly, and eventually led the product marketing team for that advertising network, meaning I got to sit down with publishers, speak with them about the best ad units for their websites, for their apps, then build the sales materials, turn them into a product with my product marketing team, and then oversee the sales team in rolling that out to, again, a lot of top 100, top 500 brands and their agencies. And I was doing a lot of traveling, was sitting down with a lot of these groups. Jeremy mentioned automotive. At that time was working with some of the biggest tier 2 automotive dealerships, also tier 1. Was going out to Detroit to meet with some of those groups in-house and their agencies for tier 1 branding campaigns for automotive, as well as everything on the travel side. We were working with a lot of the studios here out of Los Angeles, eBay, Amazon. If we weren't working with them, we were at least speaking with their groups at one point. Really started getting experience working on campaigns, all different budget sizes, campaign lengths, and again, different industries. Started getting a better feel for what worked and what didn't work across that whole spectrum. And that's basically what we do here at DNA, but for startup to mid-stage brands, which for me is far more fulfilling, far more rewarding. We're directly part of these brands' growth and many times their expansion. We're not just another line item on an Excel spreadsheet for a major telecom company. We're directly part of their scaling strategy. And that's what we look to start campaigns with, is digital strategy. We call it an 8-point plan, where we look at their industry, the client's competitors as the second point of the plan. Not just to say, hey, these are the competitors in the space, but this is exactly what they're doing to obtain digital market share today. We look at what keywords they're advertising on for Google, what websites they're advertising on with display banners, what targeting they're using for social advertising, what influencers have spoken about them, what writers are talking about them. We could look at what email marketing they're using, what type of email blast they're sending to their audience. We get to really see what's going on today in that vertical from those brands. Before moving on to the third section, target audiences, which we map out demographics, behaviors. We build personas, fictional target audience individuals, so that we could personify who we're trying to reach. We then look at the marketing channels, followed by the creative that's going to run on those marketing channels to reach those target audiences. We map out strategic partnerships, strategic partnership opportunities before getting into the final stages of our plans, which are built around the timeline, budget, and projections, along with the activation list. There's a bunch of quotes I use about marketing plans. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Planning is everything. All express how valuable that process is, how intentional all the efforts become, and the relationship, the communication process that exists in a strategy stage with a client. It really allows us to integrate with what they're doing, show them what we're trying to produce over what phases. That way, once we go live with the campaign, we're literally going through those tests together. It's not just a matter of, oh, hey, this agency is going to take my business to the next level. They know exactly what we're looking to test out, how we're going to optimize it, and if it's working, what we're going to do to scale. And you'll hear me say that a lot. That's really how I look at marketing, is with that philosophy. Test, optimize, scale, and continually looking at new tests. Even when we see campaigns working, have new tests running in small levels so that there's always new traffic sources for these brands and their websites, their digital platforms. So, mention we start with strategy. We then focus on three things: content marketing, advertising, and strategic outreach. Advertising, being my background, is definitely our core offering and where we see the highest levels of performance. But content marketing allows us to see a better conversion rate of the traffic that advertising produces, a better rate of the traffic that we bring in that turns to an e-commerce sale or a completed lead form or a software install. And content marketing, we either recommend a client to do this in-house, we offer to do it on their behalf, but we definitely encourage it to be done in one way, shape, or form. Basically creating a content strategy, having it live in a content calendar, mapping out what's going to be posted on which days, on which platforms, including social media channels, email, both email drip campaigns, maybe automated to target audiences that have completed a lead form, and email blasts, as well as digital PR, meaning taking content that's produced, whether it's a blog, a video, any type of first-party content, and reaching out to applicable writers, applicable influencers, potentially groups for co-branding opportunities, organizations for co-branding opportunities, what have you, but looking to get third parties speaking about that content. And ultimately what this creates is what we call a marketing funnel, a content marketing funnel, where it takes audiences from awareness at the top of the funnel to consideration, less people moving down to intent, finally to conversion, with many companies, with many campaigns, repeat conversion, and then at the bottom of the funnel, advocacy, peer-to-peer marketing. That social sharing is ultimately what we're trying to produce. That's the most valuable part of content marketing, getting peer-to-peer marketing stimulated. So we then can pump traffic into that funnel with our second area, advertising, and we like to touch those target audiences everywhere they go online. From search engines, Google, Yahoo, Bing, where they're typing in very specific keywords, and we can find them mid to low funnel, people who have a very specific need, depending on the competitiveness of those keywords, what other brands are going after them and which different geolocations. The cost per click bids for those placements can vary, but what we're measuring at the end of the day is the cost per acquisition, whether that, again, that's a lead, an e-commerce sale, or some type of other conversion such as an install. That's what we're ultimately looking to measure, and if that value still makes sense, we can look to purchase more of those keywords that are performing across a whole test of different keyword groups to see where we're getting the best results. Similar on social advertising, and social advertising has really become a focal point of digital marketing. The data that Facebook, Instagram makes available to us is unmatched. We can literally target people by the pages they follow on Facebook, their geolocation, age, income, their purchase behavior, things they've purchased in the past 7 days. It's truly amazing what's available to us in terms of targeting on Facebook. The actual placement, the news feed placement is impactful. It's right in between friends and family, their most popular, their favorite brands, what have you. It's right in between those posts as a full screen placement on mobile and a large placement on desktop, of course. We look to set up 4 to 10 audiences to begin and optimize towards where we're seeing the best results, playing with the daily allocated budgets, and really looking for those pockets of performance to scale. If we can say this audience on these days and times of week and these geolocations is working and we can buy more of it, we could essentially scale that low-cost conversion that we're seeing. So that's what we set out to do. Creative can be customized for each of those audiences. The power of Facebook is we're just learning more and more about it. We work with them directly. We've built case studies with them over the past couple years, but I believe social advertising is still in its infancy. There's going to be so much more that opens up in the coming years because of the whole structure of it. I mentioned banner ads across major mobile websites and apps. We use that strictly for retargeting on small campaigns, which is what Jeremy was referencing. It's when you're looking at a set of golf clubs and you see those golf clubs on every website you visit afterwards. It can be aggressive if the frequency is not capped, if there's not a 3x per day cap or something along those lines, but it's very effective. If you're spending $1,000, maybe a larger brand with a heavy amount of traffic, you're spending $10,000 on advertising to individuals who have been to that brand site, or you're spending $1,000, $10,000 on individuals who have not been to that brand site. As a rule of thumb, the people who have been to the site are always going to perform at a higher level. So when looking at digital advertising as a whole, there's an element of how big is the brand's audience? What is their monthly uniques, the monthly unique individuals that have gone through that website? And the larger that retargeting pool, the stronger the ad campaign will perform, is a way that many digital advertising networks look at it. So that's how valuable the traffic becomes. That's how effective the retargeting is. Basically, as someone goes through the site, there's a pixel, a line of code that tracks those individuals, puts that IP address, their ID, into a list. And then as those individuals are going to other websites and their screen's loading, we can participate in a bid to have an advertisement show up on that website, on that app. All in
Hey, Jason.
a millisecond. Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to interject just for a moment, because I know when you guys are working with clients, right out of the gate, and some of them, this may be their first, their ever first experience with like a pay-per-click or banner ad, digital advertising. So I know in the past we've talked a little I think on a previous call we had talked a little bit about, the retargets versus somebody who's first starting out, and just kind of how that money is used at first, because just so everybody listening on this call right now and listening to the recording later on down the line, is that there is a pool of money, right? There's a budget for this campaign, and there are a few different options to choose from as far as whether it's $1,000 a month, $1,500, and I'll bring that up later on down as we move down the line on this call. But some business owners, when they first start, it's not really in their best interest to start their retarget right away. Maybe you could talk a little bit about, kind of getting that traction and then using future bids and different websites, obviously the ones that are working to retarget, to really start converting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There has to be enough traffic to retarget. And for brands that are launching their initial marketing campaigns, they don't have a huge online audience, only a percentage of the campaign can go towards retargeting. Safely, 20 to 30% for any campaign can go to retargeting, meaning 70 to 80% of the traffic is prospecting. It's advertising towards targeted audiences, driving them to the website, to the landing page, and from there, that retargeting pool grows. As the retargeting pool grows, we can run higher and higher volumes of retargeting. Generally always want a prospecting channel. So if we're looking at search advertising placements and social advertising placements as the prospecting channels, as we can be so targeted there, and then retargeting with the banner ads everywhere, those audiences who have now been to the site are going, that's generally what we would look at for a launch, for a campaign's first advertising campaign.
So if I'm just kind of curious here, so if I'm a customer, if I'm somebody out actually seeking a physical product or service, now I'm going to land on a website, and I'm assuming that's one of the websites that you guys primarily target, right, based on those bids. So I have up on my screen right now, some of the example sites that you guys target are Forbes, Men's Health, Better Home and Gardens, Facebook, Google, Pandora, AARP, Wired, and AutoTrader. So during that prospecting stage, and I know those are just some of them, right? So it could happen on multiple sites. If I go to one of those sites or one of those social media platforms based on, my activity or kind of my online profile, my IP address will get copied. And then as I go to other sites, that's where I'm going to see the banner ads, and that's really the retargeting aspect of the campaign.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. And it goes back to that marketing funnel of the majority of people are not going to convert on the first visit. In fact, Google says an average conversion rate is about 2.35%. I call it 2%, meaning 98 out of 100 people who visit a website are not going to convert. But if those 98 people are then retargeted, it's an effort to make a higher percentage of that traffic complete the desired action. And, can give examples from my own life of purchasing behavior and looking at items for my house or for travel or whatever it is, it's easy to forget about things we see online. So if we're reminded of them with professional, enticing advertisements, things that add to the brand value, brand message, it is a tool to have a continued presence with those audiences and bring them back. Some brands retarget more aggressively than others, particularly if there's a small conversion window. Let's say the client's looking for some type of insurance quote or something that is service related with a small time window. There may be more aggressive retargeting, where if it's a longer sales cycle, the frequency of that retargeting may be lower, but over a more extended period of time. Maybe it's something with a 3 to 6 week average sales cycle. So brands use retargeting in different ways. B2B, business-to-business companies use retargeting as well in that same capacity to have that continued presence of their prospects. So there's a lot of different uses for it, and it's a great way to have that continued exposure with target audiences.
That's great. And I was thinking about something too, and this is something that we had also talked about in the past, was you had mentioned that 2.35% or call it 2% like you do. For people on the phone call and listening, that may not sound like a whole lot, but here's the interesting part, is that some products or services, you only need a couple of customers for that really to pay off for the business owner. It's really about the margin. So, car dealerships, for example. Okay, well, cars sell for quite a bit. So 1 or 2 new customers coming from a retargeting campaign or a digital ad campaign of some sort, if out of 100 people, 2 of them go and buy a car, that's pretty good that's a pretty good turnout. And that industry type can be compared to a lot of others. Furniture, for sometimes furniture is not cheap. Most of the times it's expensive, new sectionals, beds, mattresses. So if you're getting, just 2% of the people, and then just say it's 100, okay, we're 2 people, or say it's 1,000, and that's 20 people. 20 people converting out of 1,000, they're making money. That campaign cost that they're spending, that's all being covered. They're making money. And then oftentimes, Jason, I think what ends up happening with your guys' clients that you work with is they're upping the budget, right? They're adding a little bit more to it. You guys may start off at $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 a month, but then 3 or 4 months down the line, that campaign may have doubled or sometimes tripled, because if the results are there, the ROI, the return on the investment is there, there's no reason why the customer why the client wouldn't want to increase those numbers. Because again, only if it's 2%, but you got, 10,000 people, and then 2% of them are converting, well, it's just the numbers keep growing and growing and growing, and the return keeps growing and growing and growing as a result of that. You want to talk a little bit about that, Jason?
Absolutely. You've heard me use the word scale quite a bit. That's because it's such a big part of what we do, and one of the reasons I find so much value in digital advertising. With marketing, if you're able to find channels to get a conversion, it's great, but if there's a limit to how many conversions you can get, it may not make a huge difference for the company. With digital advertising, we can look at the available inventory, the available ad placements to target audiences, and can project how much more of it we can buy to brands. And as Jeremy was mentioning, we often get asked by brands when they're seeing a good level of performance, how do we get more? Even to the point of how much of this can we buy? And yes, the conversion value, the average order value, most importantly, the lifetime value of each of these customers, each of these clients that brands see, plays a big role in that. And I can give you a few examples of how brands have scaled the type of performance we've seen for them. One of the verticals we've actually seen a high level of success in is online fundraising, equity crowdfunding and crowdfunding campaigns, where we're actually selling shares of a company online, and they're raising funds around it. They have to go through SEC audits. They generally work with a platform. We work with a few of them directly, such as Start Engine. We've had some of the biggest campaigns on there, including the top campaign of the past couple of years, Rayton Solar, completed with $6.344 million last month. And they started with a $5,000 a month advertising budget. And we were hitting a very low cost per acquisition, in this case of an investor, someone who's physically investing online. Now with online investing, it's about $1,300 was their average investor amount. They had a $500 minimum, but we drew over 4,000 of them, and we're acquiring them for about $50 the first month. So to pay $50 to get about $1,300 back, they were one of those brands saying, how much of this could we buy? And they got up to points to where they're spending $6K a day, not because they wanted to spend $180,000 a month, but because they knew the type of return that they would see from it. So you end up finding clients that not only double their budget, but ask how large can we go, and then we build ways to test that out, where we may double the budget, let it sit for 3 to 7 days, make sure we're hitting the same performance benchmarks, i.e. the same cost per acquisition of each conversion. We then can look to increase the budget again, also letting it sit for 3 to 7 days and optimizing throughout that period of time, but being able to draw more conversions for them, drive more traffic that's converting. Jeremy mentioned furniture. We worked with a brand called Sofa Mania, and we actually just trained their in-house buyers last week, but we worked with them from May up through February here. And they started with a higher budget. They were a furniture e-commerce brand that basically offered direct-to-consumer pricing, up to 70% off retail. And an existing brand who sold on Amazon, on Wayfair, on these different sites that they were giving away a percentage, said, we're going to sell it for less. We're going to run marketing and run it direct to consumer and make a better margin on it, even though it's a lower cost product. And they started at about a $16K spend with us per month outside of management fees. First month we produced $168,000 in sales for them. And then as we continued to scale, they basically, over the year, spent about $600K with us and produced about $3 million in revenue, which fit their model well. That encompassed the months where they didn't see as strong as performance, as many advertising campaigns will see stronger months with lower returns. They saw excellent performance over the winter season, the holiday season, and their revenue went from their revenue also went up about 5x from May to November on the monthly levels. So again, being directly part of that growth. And as Jeremy was mentioning, 3K, less. Like we've seen companies start of all different sizes, and we're actually less concerned with that. We're not looking to sell them on a huge package or anything like that right out of the gate, as much as we are looking to set them up for success and find companies who have the ability to scale. Far more interested in a brand that says we want to start with 3K, 5K, 10K per month. If this works, we could double month after month, than a brand who says, this is my budget, this is all we have, and don't know where the next piece is coming from. The ability to scale is the biggest thing we look at, because that's where we can make a real difference. We can have a real impact.
I'm glad that you talked about that a little bit, and there actually is a question from Andy. Andy, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? And I also want to throw in before Andy says that is include acquisitions into this as well. But Andy, go ahead and ask your question. You had a couple of them there.
Sure. Yeah, I might have been taking notes if you to find it, but what is, and this is just because I'm new to this, is what is the actual definition of conversion and immersion?
Impressions?
Impression, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So impressions that is the ad being viewed. A unique impression is how many times unique individuals have seen it, meaning there may be 10,000 impressions, but only 5,000 people saw it because they saw it an average of 2,000 times at an average of 2 times each. It's basically the ad being viewed. The ad being viewed 10,000 times, 1,000,000 times, that would be 10,000 impressions, 1,000,000 impressions. It's how many times the ad is viewed. From there,
what you do is you track that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's ultimately how we purchase the ads on Facebook and on websites and apps. We buy it on what's called a CPM, cost per thousand impressions. The M is a Roman numeral M for thousand. CPM, cost per thousand impressions. So if we're buying at a $5 CPM, that means every $5 we spend, the ad will be seen 1,000 times. If we spend $5,000, the ad will be seen 1,000,000 times. It's broken down by how many times the ad is seen. From there, we measure how many times the ad is clicked. And there's different metrics around that, such as the cost per click, the click-through rate, percentage of how many people click on the ad itself. Each click ultimately turns into traffic to a visitor of the site. Sometimes the loading time or other elements will stop the visitor from seeing the site before they're actually viewing it in its entirety. But for the most part, a click is a visitor to the site. And then that visit, if it turns into the desired action, such as an e-commerce sale, someone purchasing a product on a website, maybe it's a completed lead form, filling out for a test drive of a car or a quote from an insurance provider, what have you. Could also be, I mentioned, a crowdfunding backer, although that would be ultimately e-commerce. It could be an app install, a software install. But basically, it's another term for it, KPI, the key performance indicator. It's the key thing the client's looking to measure. So if it's an e-commerce website, they're going to say impressions are great, clicks are great, but what we ultimately want to measure is sales. We want to know what it costs for each sale. We want to know the return on ad spend for each sale, how much we're actually making off of it after spending on the ads. We're interested in sales. So that's what the conversion would be. And we're looking to measure the conversion rate, the percentage of people who visit that website and end up completing that action, the cost per conversion, or what we call cost per acquisition, acquisition of that e-commerce client, of that investor, of that lead, cost per acquisition, and then the return on ad spend, which is basically looking at what was spent to acquire that customer, then the amount that customer was worth, and dividing that to show the multiplier. So whether it's a 2x, a 5x, a 10x return, those are all metrics that clients generally focus on.
Okay.
Did that answer your question, Andy?
Yes. So if I understand correctly, like I visit a lot of sales training sites of sorts.
Sure.
If they have a free download, so you would measure how many people click on that download, and that would kind of be an action, or would that be a conversion at that point, or an impression? If they click a download, that
would be a conversion.
Okay.
The impression would only be used to describe the advertisement being viewed. So if you saw an advertisement, that would be an impression. If you didn't see an advertisement, there would be no advertising impression. It's really just talking about the ads and before you get to the site. The conversion would be measured if you, let's say, filled out a form to download a white paper, or if there's just a button to download the white paper. Generally what you would see is a thank you page, a conversion page, a page that's only viewable if you've completed an action, And on that page, there's a tracker, there's a pixel tracking the same way we do for retargeting who's visiting a site, who's visiting that page. So we can then look at how many people who saw the ad ended up seeing the thank you page. And that's how conversions are measured. So every conversion sees that thank you page, that conversion page. It's only accessible if someone's made that action, and that's how it's measured.
So they fill in the form, they supply their email or a cell phone number, whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, I think, and maybe in your example here, is I'll just give an example of what I think you're going for, Andy, is if you had, let's say, a public speaker or somebody who does sales trainings and they have maybe e-books or stuff like that, is, you know, the ad may say, you know, click here to get a free copy of our sales book, of our sales e-book. And maybe that download is just a teaser. Maybe it's not the full book, right? But they get the first chapter or something. And then that might lead them to, you know, another conversion down the line. But, you know, the click on that initial ad that would say click here to, you know, get your free copy of our sales e-book, that would be the impression. And then when they actually completed the download, or like Jason was saying, as an example, put their, you know, email in, maybe they're going to email them a link to the ebook, you know, who knows how that's set up. That would be the actual conversion.
Right. Okay.
And it's, you know, and you know, and then a conversion in different industries, different products, different service, different offerings can mean different things. You know, to a car dealership, you know, maybe a test drive, depending on what their ad is. A test drive, in their opinion, could be a conversion, or maybe it's the actual sale of a car, or, you know, an insurance agency just getting somebody to put in their information so they can provide a free quote. Conversions may mean different things to different people who are running different types of campaigns. But really, at the end of the day, the conversion really means is that person that's out searching online is completing whatever it is that business owner wants them to complete. And that can be, you know, again, a very, very broad broad thing. It can be multiple different types of conversions depending on what the industry is. Now, you know, another thing that I really, really like about you, Brian, and your company is that your guys' tracking is really good. You know, you had already kind of hinted at that a little bit as you're tracking all of these impressions, these, you know, click-throughs on the ad, the conversion, the cost per acquisition. And I've seen before, and I got to double check, but I believe in our document library we might have an example of this. And if not, I'll have to get that from you again and make sure we get it in the site. But you had showed a report at one point in time that says, you know, it's basically per day, right? It said, you know, on this day you guys had this many impressions. On this day there was this many impressions. And that actually breaks down to a cost per acquisition. So if you guys are spending, you know, $50 a day on ad spend, and you guys get, you know, 100 people to look at that ad, that actually breaks down to X dollars per person that actually looked at that ad. So maybe we can talk just a little bit about that cost per acquisition, because I think that's very, very important for business owners to know. And a lot of times when you were saying goals, right, what's the customer's goal, what's the client's goal, they'll usually tell you, well, we want our cost per acquisition to be X, because we're selling our service or our product for this, and we know if our cost per acquisition is X, that we're profitable on the conversion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. When we get a monthly budget, we set up daily pacing around it. Oftentimes the pacing will start at a lower level and will scale into the allocated level based on the month divided by 30. I'll give you an example. Let's say we have a $2,100 budget, which is what our 3K budgets are outside of management fee for clients directly, and that is $70 a day. $70 a day, let's say on a Facebook advertising campaign, we broke it into 7 different audiences, $10 a day each. We're then looking at how many impressions that gets us, more importantly, how many clicks that gets us, and then how that traffic's performing into conversions, how many conversions that gets us. So if we have three audiences that are producing one conversion each day at about $10 each. One conversion each day, which would mean they're paying $10 for that conversion each day, and we're getting three conversions off the $70 budget, and that puts us at about a $23 cost per conversion, $23 cost per acquisition. That has to make sense for the brand's model. If the brand is seeing an average order value of $20 and they don't have a clear lifetime value of that customer, they're not going to be too excited about those results. Now, we would be able to optimize towards those three groups that are producing conversions. And essentially, if we were spending our whole budget on those three groups, let's say we were seeing that every day, and we said, hey, these other four audiences, not worth it. We want to run just towards those three. We're going to spend 23 a day on there, and then now we're seeing 2.3 times more of the conversions off of it. We're seeing whatever it is, seeing 6 conversions off of it. That would allow us to improve the performance, get it down to about $12, $13, and then from there, client would be seeing a better return on it, and we would likely make recommendations for them to have a longer funnel, meaning additional opportunities for them to make purchases after that $20 purchase. Obviously, if the client had a much higher average order value, let's say it was like that furniture client with a $360 average order value, if we're paying $20 for each order, they're going to be very happy about it. They're going to look to scale the budget to spend more, to get more conversions. So we're able to get a good grasp on what's going on and what's occurring. We do run into obstacles at times with pixels, and we'll look at the client's numbers, most importantly on their site, make sure Facebook, Google, or any of the ad platforms we use are showing the same numbers. But generally, if the client's seeing steady conversions, and we are able to get the pixel set up very easily, particularly if they're using a major website management platform. A lot of our e-commerce clients use Shopify. A lot of the lead generation clients use lead form templates. There's some different sites that do that, Unbound, Lead Pages. Any of these platforms generally have an easy pixel integration, so the tracking is very straightforward. And then once we're able to get those numbers, once we're able to see where performance is coming from, not only can we attribute it to different channels, but again, we can optimize towards it, which means we can be more effective with the spend.
All right, and I hope that all made sense to everybody. I know I understand it, and really I think it just kind of boils down to what are they spending per day, how many impressions are they getting, and how many of those impressions are actually converting, right, or producing money for them. So it's a nice little formula. It says, okay, we're spending this per day. We have this many impressions, and then out of those impressions, this many people are actually converting. So you take the actual conversions, and correct me if I'm wrong at any point on this, Jason, but you're taking the number of conversions divided by that daily spend, and that's where you're getting your cost per acquisition. And like Jason said, if it's that mattress company and their average conversion is $360 and they're getting 3 conversions a day, roughly 20, and they're spending $70 a day, so roughly $23 per client, but they're actually getting $360, that's a pretty good margin. Okay, spending basically $20 to make $360, I would do that all day long. And you can kind of see how that right there leads people into adding to that. Because if that's a number that pleases them, that they're 3 new customers every single day, making them about $1,000 a day. Okay, well, what can we do to double or triple those conversions so that we can just keep growing our overall revenue, 3x, 4x, 5x? Again, these are all things that Jason and his team will work with the customer on. They'll set goals. They'll ask the customer, what is, how much per conversion do you guys, want to spend? What's your goal? So they'll work all those numbers. And, Jason had mentioned earlier on in the call that they can kind of tweak the campaign and adjust it. If they're spending ad money, through, bidding on ads every single day, and some of them aren't producing and they're not converting, well, they'll know what budget spend, or ad spend, I should say, is working, and they can put more money towards those and then just kind of forget about the ones that aren't working. So, at first, and Jason, you can definitely chime in here. I'm sure at first it takes a little bit of time. I'm not sure exactly what that time frame is to kind of really nail down the campaign, if you will, and then it can really start cranking at a high level. So I guess my question, Jason, is what do you see on average? And I know industries and different products and services will vary a little bit, but just kind of on average, what does it usually take a customer to kind of get to their goal of kind of going through that first 30 days or what have you to figure out what's working?
Yeah, we generally recommend an average of 3 months. Some clients see performance right out of the gate. Others, it takes more to get there. We don't like to look at it as, hey, advertising worked or it didn't work, but more along the lines of how do we get it to work for this brand. Because the target audiences are out there. The placements are available to reach those audiences. We just have to, as you said, tweak, optimize different sections of that algorithm. Meaning, if we're buying the advertising impressions at a good rate, but we're not getting a high enough click-through rate, people aren't clicking on the ad as much as we would like, we would then work with the client on their creative, on the actual advertisements themselves. What can we do to produce more value, more perceived value, and motivate more action on the advertisement? Whether it's the image or video on a social ad, the image on a banner ad, the text across a search ad, or any of those placements. What can we do to create more action? A lot of the times it's simplifying the message. A lot of the times it's adding some type of hook to get people more enrolled quicker, to create more of a response. But we look to increase the click-through rate. If the traffic is getting there at a good rate, if we're hitting a good cost per click, but traffic's not converting, we then look at the landing page, at the page of the website that the advertisements are driving the traffic to, the individuals. And we look for the same type of opportunities in regards to the messaging and the imagery, the content there. What can we do to inspire a quicker conversion, an easier conversion, a stronger response level? A lot of the times that's based around social proof, talking about publishers or different writers, different groups who have talked about the brand and showing their logos there. Sometimes it's testimonials or other types of elements of showing off the brand's performance, their case studies, their statistics, whatever it may be, average savings per customer, something along those lines. But something that shows social proof, something that communicates the value in a more simple fashion, and most importantly, inspires action. We'll look to increase the conversion rate there, as well as play with the targeting and try out different types of targeting, seeing different audiences perform at a higher level. So when we see a campaign that's not hitting its performance benchmarks, it's not hitting its conversion goals, we look to see at which stage of the algorithm it's not hitting the performance benchmark. If it's not hitting an average click-through rate, if it's not hitting an average conversion rate, we know what to look at. And looking at tests with the clients, whether we're building the creative, whether they're doing it, varies client by client. Either way, we want to do whatever we can to make sure they're seeing results off that. And some clients take longer. I would say 3 months is a good recommendation for brands. If they have the ability to map it out for longer, even better. But we generally mention 3 months to clients to kind of paint the picture that this may work right out, of the launch. But if we have the ability to optimize, and even if it is working right out of the launch, if we have a few months to continue to tweak the campaign, we're going to be able to get it to a more and more effective level.
And I'm glad that you mentioned, those ads too, because sometimes it's just the ad isn't sending the right message, or it's too wordy, or the image maybe isn't right for the audience. So I have some ad examples up on my screen right now, some of the actual ads that DNA has created, and there's different sizes. It just kind of depends on what kind of site, mobile, PC, so all those types of things will come into play. But I just wanted to show you guys some of these ads that they create. Very, very nice. Friendly, nice images. Again, we talk a lot about the call to action. So just like using, this one in the middle here, the lady in the black dress. Right down below, it just says shop now. So very straightforward. Hey, women's clothing. You want to shop for women's clothing? Click shop now. It's going to take you over to what I assume is their website with all of their products, where they can go through and start shopping. And Jason was also talking about there's donations, investments. So you got a gold IRA. Help a Panda support this campaign. You click on that to donate. So a wide variety of different shapes, different sizes, different message, different actual messages, donate or invest, or actually we want you to buy something. This ad is because we want you to click on it, go to our website, buy this dress. So I'm just kind of scrolling here through so you guys can see some of these examples. And where I got these examples, I guess is important also to point out, is in the Plans tab. Right down here it says click here to view ads that some of our current clients use in their marketing campaigns. So those are real ads. These are ones that clients of DNA are currently using. And then I also wanted to talk a little bit about the pricing offer. So if you notice in our Plans tab, it says $9.98. That is like the starting campaign. That's literally the minimum amount of money to where Jason and his team knows that that is at least enough for them to go out and purchase ad. Because we have to keep in mind, if there's not enough money to use for ad purchases and bidding and all of that stuff, it's not going to be effective. They have to spend at least this amount of money for it to actually work. And they've tested it. They know what their DNA knows what their threshold is. And really anything less than $1,000 a month is just not worth it for the client. They're not going to see the results, and they're not going to stick around. So that is kind of the starting point. But there are also, that isn't the only offer that we have. If you guys were to go inside of the Forms tab, and where it says click here to start your purchase of this service, it'll actually take you over to this page right here. And then you'll notice that there's a drop down. So $9.98 is the one that's currently locked in there. And then there's a $1,500, $2,500, $5 and $10. And realistically, Jason, and you correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I think it can be, somewhere in between or even higher than that. So it doesn't necessarily mean that the client has to go with what's right here on the offer. If there's something more in between, like, we got $2,500 to a $5,000 jump, we got $5,000 to a $10,000 jump. If they want to be somewhere in between $2,500 and $5,000, like maybe $4,000, or they want to be somewhere between $5,000 and $10,000, maybe $7,500 as an example, they can contact DNA, or Jason right here, and they can talk to him, and Jason will, give them a bid, which is another thing I actually didn't bring up, and I'm glad I just thought of that because we are running a little bit short on time, but they actually will create a proposal. So if a client is interested, okay, if we are going to budget out $2,500 a month on digital ad campaigns and retargeting and all of that stuff, what are you guys proposing? Where is this money going to be used at? What are you guys proposing that our cost per acquisition will be, and all of that stuff? They're really, really good about putting together those proposals. I've seen several proposals that Jason and his team have put together, and they're very, very nice proposals. Looks like we have a question. Jean, go ahead.
I was just curious on that pricing. I know the $9.98 is a 15% discount. Do Agora members get a discount on those higher packages as well?
Yes, and happy to map that out in any custom proposals with you. Always welcome warm marketing conversations. So, feel free to use this as a resource. We could hop on a discovery call, create a proposal, run it by you beforehand, and then do a proposal review call with the client. Definitely like to make sure everything on it's straightforward and showcase the percentage discount.
Much appreciated.
All right, good deal. I figure that answered your question. I know, that is one thing that we all know, right? Agora, all the partners that we have here at Agora, DNA included in that, there's always some sort of discount. And as you can see on my screen right now, normally that $998 plan or budget, if the customer was to go directly to DNA, it would cost them somewhere close to $1,200 or $1,175 to be exact. So there is, a couple $100, about $180 off of what it would normally cost them. So, yep, there's going to be discounts all the way through. I know it doesn't really highlight that so well in the drop-down. So maybe I can work with you, Jason, and we can actually map that out and get that on the site, because I would like to add those additional plans in here. But, I think one of the reasons why we have this plan right now is it's a great entry price. This is something that will start showing them in results. And then as Jason has said before, they'll really work with them on the optimization and I say increase. I know you have another word that you guys like to use, Jason, and when you're actually increasing, the campaign, scaling, I believe is what you say. So when you want to scale that campaign up, this is a good starting point. $1,000 a month is a good starting point. Once that customer starts seeing those results and they're seeing what their cost per acquisition is per day and what their conversions are and all of that, that's going to incentivize them to want to keep feeding that campaign, because if they like the results that they're getting with $1,000, well, imagine what they can do by increasing that campaign, up to 3, 4, 5. It can go very high. You mentioned a few customers that are spending, $600,000 in the course of a year, and I think you mentioned another one was like $60,000 a month, right? So, over close to $2 million a year. So, the possibilities are endless. I mean, depending on how well that campaign's going, there's no reason why they just want to keep feeding that. If they like the results, they just want to get more and more and more of those results. So I would take a little pause here and ask if there are any other questions. We had a couple of great questions from Andy and Jean. I think a couple of you are muted, so I'm going to go ahead and unmute, and we'll just kind of wait around, see if anybody has a question. And if not, we'll probably get close to wrapping it up here. Okay, yeah, Andy, go ahead.
The numbers on the ads where it said 780 by whatever, is that the number of pixels, or is it an actual scale of millimeters or something? Again,
yeah, good question, Jason. You want to go ahead and take that?
Yeah, those are the advertisement sizes. So 728 by 90 is 728 pixels wide and 90 pixels high.
Okay.
So we can work with the clients on that if they're producing their own creative. We can also build creative on their behalf, particularly if we have assets from them, any images they use, any messaging that they use, so it can support in that process. But it reflects the the ad size.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then there's influencer posts too. Like, I believe these are images of Instagram posts. So I don't know if anybody on this call or listening to this recording down the line has Instagram. I do. So I happen to know, once in a while when I'm on there, I'll be kind of scrolling through the feed and I'll see something very similar to this, where it's a shoe, it's, a coat, it's a piece of jewelry, and they're wanting you to click basically on a link. And I believe when on these influencer posts, if I click on that link to further inquire about that product, that's an impression. And then if I actually buy that bracelet or that pair of shoes or whatever it is, that would be the conversion. And I know there's another one over here, which maybe we could talk about just for a quick second, as this looks like a house like a real estate offer. So maybe them clicking to view the house, like maybe talk about that a little bit in real estate, because I think in real estate is probably a really powerful one too.
Yeah, so that's actually for Prefab LA, which is now in-house at Turkel Design, and they do prefab homes. So they have model homes that can be built in very small windows of time on plots of land. Now, they'll physically send somebody out, survey the land, set it up for that home with all of the right angles and everything around it. But it was a lead generation campaign to target individuals looking at building a home and having them directed to a landing page where they would sign up for a call to learn more about it. And they were receiving a very strong cost per lead on that. Can also target on behalf of real estate agents. We can target sellers, can target buyers, different types of campaigns around that. But with similar targeting, can accomplish the same goals for various types of real estate businesses.
I know when I was house shopping last year, even after I bought my home and everything, still months and months later, I was getting retargeted, or I was still kind of getting, ads from realestate.com, like, hey, we got, because they knew what price range I was looking at. So they say, hey, we found a home in your price range in this area, take a look at it. So there's always those kind of things to keep in mind. I mean, I really don't know, and Jason, maybe you can just talk about the industries. Is there really an industry that wouldn't be a great fit? I mean, obviously, I'm sure there's our industries, restricted businesses that you guys probably wish not to work with, but what kind of industries don't you see that aren't successful, and maybe what are some of the industries that you guys have seen that are the most successful so far to date?
Good question. Any brands that are set up to do business online. Some of the ones that are not are tougher, but if they're looking to do business online, whether it's e-commerce and e-commerce that target audiences are used to buying from, they've made purchases similar to it in the past. We're generally just replicating. So whether that's clothing, different types of tech hardware, things that fit into the normal buying patterns of the target audience are more straightforward. New categories can be tougher. I had mentioned the crowdfunding platforms make it a bit easier for a new category as well. If it requires an offline touch, you want to make sure it's set up for lead generation and want to make sure those lead forms are tested or understand that they're going to be set up for testing. It may take a while to crack that code. But, any business looking to do, any company looking to do business online.
Okay, good. Now, would you say, too, for everybody on the call and listening to this recording, that if they have a client in mind that they think this might be a good fit for, would you recommend maybe that they reached out to you or had the client reach out to you to learn a little bit more? As I know there's obviously algorithms and a lot that plays into the campaign, so to contact you for a potential proposal and just a better feel for how everything works?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to do calls with anyone on the team and any clients as well.
All right, awesome. So I have his contact information up right here. He has his email and his telephone number there. So if you or one of your clients is interested in learning more about how a digital ad campaign can help their business grow, you contact Jason. They'd be happy to put together a proposal, talk with the client to better inform them, and just kind of help that deal close. And if you have a client who's like, nope, I'm ready to go, I already know that I have a budget of this that I want to spend, you guys can just simply go to the Forms tab, click here, and it's going to take you over to essentially this checkout page. And I wanted to spend just maybe 1 minute on this page before we wrap it up. I already showed everybody how we have the different prices here, but what's also great, and Jason talked about this, is the target audience. Some businesses are going to target certain audiences. So going back to that ad example that I had up here of the gal in the dress, well, they're probably going to want to target mostly females, and probably, in fact, 100% females. So they would say, okay, our campaign, we want to target the female audience from ages, 25 to 34, the industry, geographic information. Hey, we want to target people from this geographical area. There's the actual target states. So when we're coming when you come to this checkout page, there are going to be several areas to fill out so that DNA knows what is the audience, what age group, what industry, what geographical location are you guys wanting to specifically target, and they'll build the campaign around all of that information. They can upload images, and they can build, those ads around images, overlay text on top of an image. What the date, this is important, what date do they want that campaign to start? So today is the 21st of February. Maybe they want this to go live, the second week of March. Hey, Jason, how long does it usually take to get a campaign off the ground?
Yeah, we request 7 days for setup.
Okay.
If we have to work on the creative and there are not assets available, it could potentially take longer. If we have the ability to work on the strategies take 4 weeks, but that's a different offering. But just getting an advertising campaign up, we request 7 days. I will say that we're presented with all types of different timelines. We get the answer today when asking a client when they want to go live. And we try to accommodate as much as we can, but we request 7 days.
Okay, I think that's just good information for everybody to have. So, all right, we are a few minutes past the hour here, so I just want to ask one more time if there are any other questions, and if not, we will thank Jason, and we'll continue on with our Productive Wednesday. Any final questions or comments?
I just want to make sure I heard him right. Did he say he asked typically for 7 days?
Yes.
Typically, yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, some clients may want a little bit sooner, and they'll do everything they can, but sometimes it's just not possible. So they are going to request, somewhere, you said 4 to 7, right? 4 to 7 days.
7. 7 is what we would really
7. Okay. For some reason, I thought I heard a 4 in there. Okay, so yeah, generally average is a week. Give them about a week to get all the, the actual campaign, the ads built, and to get that target audience, and to know what sites they're going to target, and obviously what are, the prospecting side of the campaign, actually getting the contacts, and then, the retargeting part of it, which is about 20 or 30% typically of the spend is what they're going to use for targeting, and the bulk of it's going to go towards always having new impressions, right? Because just like in sales, we're all sales people here on this call. Everybody always needs to have a full pipeline. Business owners who are also looking to sell need to always continue to have a full pipeline. So I always want to be mindful of the retargeting percentage versus, the new prospect percentage. You always want to have, higher percentage of new people coming in versus the ones that you're retargeting. Because if your funnel runs dry, your pipeline runs dry, then you're just retargeting to a bunch of people, and eventually those retargets go away, and then you're left with no new people to target. So, all right. So thank you for adding that in there at the end, Andy. And Jason, thank you so much for spending some time with us today. I hope this is helpful for everybody listening live and listening to the recording in the future. Really great product. There's a lot of business out there that actually already use a similar service, or maybe have been interested. And we have some good pricing on this. So I'd say let's go out and talk to some clients about getting some digital ads out there. And again, Jason, thank you so much for spending some time. And I'll put his contact information up on the screen just one more time. If anybody needs to give him a call or send him an email about a potential client, he is open to doing that. So thank you, everybody, for your time, and we will talk to you soon. Bye-bye now.